Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Amy. Today we're going to be going through my books that I read in May. I ended up only reading 7 books in May, so not as good as April, but I still had a pretty good reading month. I definitely DNF'd one book, and I do want to continue reading the other book. I just wasn't in the mood for it at that particular time. But I do have a good many 5 stars this month. I have 4 5 stars, 2 4 stars, and 1 2 star. So we'll start off with the DNF. Let's go ahead and get the bad ones out of the way so we can concentrate on the good. So I did try to start reading Forgetting August. This is by J.L. Burge. I actually got pretty far into this book. I would say a little over 150 pages. I probably got almost halfway through. I was enjoying it, the first mini chapters. I was really enjoying it. I love the fact that our character August was just awaking from being in a coma for I forgot, was it 2 years, maybe a year, 2 years? I don't remember, but it was enough time for his girlfriend to sort of move on. She's found someone else and they are actually engaged. So when August wakes up, he doesn't remember anything. Nothing about what happened, nothing about anyone in his life. He finds a picture of Everly, and so he kind of makes it upon himself to try to find her, and maybe she can help him figure out who he is. He doesn't have anyone. He hasn't had anyone come and visit him. He's just been in the hospital in this coma for a year or 2. I don't remember how long. So I was really loving that aspect of the book. The only thing, you don't get what kind of accident it was. I think it had to do with a mugging, but you don't get any description of that. You don't get like a timeline going back to when that happened. So I was a little annoyed at that because as I'm reading throughout the book, I'm like, but what happened to him? They never really said it, and then finally they mentioned something about a mugging. So I'm assuming that's what happened. Maybe if I'd have continued reading, I would have learned more, but I was already halfway through the book and I knew where it was going to go. So he does not get his memory back as far as I know. So he's trying to start over, have a new life, because apparently he wasn't that great of a person in his old life. He wasn't necessarily abusing Everly. But he was sort of keeping her as prisoner. And we don't really know why until around the middle of the book I started getting a feeling of I knew why. And someone ends up coming back in his life, and when that person shows up, I was like, okay, I know where this is going and I don't like it. So what I did was I went ahead, I was sort of getting annoyed by this time anyway, so I went ahead and I flipped to the end of the book. It definitely leaves you with a cliffhanger, and there is a second book. I think it's called Remembering Everly. I'm not interested because like I said, I knew where this was going. I wasn't interested in where it was going. I didn't want to read about it because I knew it would annoy me, and I was kind of done with it. So yeah, I DNF'd it, and I don't plan on picking up this book ever again or going on to continue with the series. Next is Fragments of the Lost by Megan Miranda. Kind of no surprise that I wasn't feeling it because I just apparently don't enjoy Megan Miranda's writing. I don't know what it is. Now, I will say that I was much more into this story than I was any of the other books that I read by her, but it was very sad and depressing. Not even, and there's no chapters, so I don't know what chapter I'm on, but that's how far I got, and I was like, okay, I'm done. This is too sad. This is too depressing. I'm not in the mood for this right now. But I do want to pick it up at a later time and continue reading it because I actually am interested in the story behind whatever is happening. So, and I think this might be a YA. I'm not positive because I do think she's still going to school. She's maybe a senior. I don't remember. So our main character that we're following is Jessa, and she was dating Caleb, and a tragic accident happened. I don't really know what exactly happened. We're getting like little bits of ideas, but like I said, I'm not very far into it at all. So I'm sure the story's coming because we're starting to get a little bit of it, but she is cleaning out his room right now. So not only is it sad going through, like, reading about her emotions going through his belongings, but it's also frustrating and sort of a little boring because I'm like, can we move on? Can we move on to the story? I don't want to hear about any more about his clothing, because I promise you, each chapter is named a piece of his clothing or a certain object. And like I said, there's no chapters, but the chapters or whatever are headed. We do have parts. I didn't get to a second part, so part 1, I guess, is just Jessa going through his clothes, his belongings, and she's describing how they make her feel, I guess, and what time in their relationship does that particular object reflect upon. Are you following me? I was getting a little bored and depressed. So we have a blue door. So she describes the blue door to his bedroom, and like the first time she's ever been in his bedroom. We do have snippets of, like, this says Saturday morning. I know you probably can't see that, but we have a little bit of her being outside of his bedroom. So I kind of enjoy those little parts of the story. But we go right back into his room and we're like, dragonfly necklace. What does this symbolize about Caleb and my relationship? Broken in baseball cap. Let's talk about that. Gray pinstripes. Let's talk about his gray pinstripe suit for a little while. Out of tune guitar. The first time she saw it in his closet and how it made her feel, and she was supposed to teach him how to play. Pictures of us and where they're located in his room. Why are they still in his room? Because they have broken up. His glasses. She goes on to talk about how the first time she saw him in his glasses, and she can't find his glasses. It went on and on and on, and I thought we were going somewhere because we finally got to a couple chapters of like Saturday night, Sunday morning, and then we get to hiking boots. I've had enough. I can't do this anymore. I can't tear up anymore. I can't handle this right now. So I put it aside, but I will pick it up in the near future. It is part of the Literally Dead book club pick of the month for May. Yeah. So I'm sure, I think that the talk on it is going to be like June 10th or something like that. So I don't know what I'm gonna do. I don't know if I want to just listen to the talk and maybe not continue to read it, or do I want to continue to read it and then listen to the talk? I don't know what I want to do. Like, part of me is intrigued. I want to know what happened to Caleb. I want to know why they broke up, and why apparently he still loved her, because all the pictures of her were all still up. He still had her necklace. You know, what does all this mean? Where are we going with this? I'm curious. And I think that's what Megan Miranda does to me. Like, she kind of pulls me in, but the majority of the time I'm bored. I don't know. So I would like to pick this up at a later date, but we shall see. Okay, moving on to the real reads of May. I'm just going to go in the order that I read the books because I have it all written down. I think I went from like lowest star to highest star last time I did my wrap up, but we're just gonna go down the list today. So first up we have Endless Stretch of Blue by Riley Hart. Beautiful cover, by the way. I gave this 5 stars because it had everything for me. These two guys were considered themselves straight. They both dated women, had relationships with women, but nothing ever really stuck. I love those kind of stories. They come together due to a tragic accident that has happened with their siblings, I guess. So we have Enzo, Enzo is a very talented carpenter. He works in carpentry. He's always felt like the black sheep of the family. And after the incident with his brother, he has felt so much guilt and even felt so much disappointment from his family. Like he feels like he's not good enough for them anymore, and he let this happen to his brother. And then we have Damon. Damon is a very successful hospital manager. He has a beautiful home. He stays close to his mom. His mom is in an Alzheimer's living facility, so he goes every Saturday to visit her. They're both their separate stories are very loving and beautiful and emotional. They find each other one night when they're both at the same location where the incident happened. And Damon sort of sees something happen to Enzo, like a possible mugging. So he sort of goes to his rescue. But anyway, that's kind of how they meet. And they just really become friends after that. They end up telling each other about the other person and, you know, why they were there at that spot. You know, it almost seemed like fate that they came together. And just ever since that night, they just wanted to be with each other. Not necessarily with each other, just around each other as friends. And that sort of just grows into something more. They realize that the feelings they are having are much more greater than friendship, and they do not want to be away from each other, so they start pretty much spending all times together. And then of course they experiment, they like kiss, and then nothing really happens after that, but they still want to be together, but they're not really understanding what's going on. You know, why do they feel like this? Do they want to continue moving forward with these feelings and these emotions? It was a very, very slow burn book, and I was not sad about that, because once these two guys get together, it's amazing. So it was just a very beautiful story, and I loved the way they came together. Next up, I finally picked up Follow Me. Not finally, I haven't really been having this for a long time, but it's been sitting on my shelf just like calling my name, because for one, I love the cover, and I'm just very interested in the whole social media influencer, famous kind of stalking story. Not that I would ever want any of that to happen to anyone, but it's very interesting and educational. So you do get a little bit of education at the beginning of this book, which I found very interesting. And it does open your eyes, especially if you put yourself out there into the world of the internet, on social media, or whatever platform it may be. You just have to be very careful of what you put out there, and it's scary. This made me like really think, and I was just like, wow. But anyway, I didn't hear a lot of good things about this book. I gave this 4 stars. I mean, it wasn't like the perfect thriller or mystery, but it was very good. I didn't want to put it down. I did listen to this on audio, which I recommend. It was I really enjoyed having all the different voices, because we follow our Instagram influencer, who is our main character. Her name is Kat, I believe. I think that's her name. It's been a while since. No, her name is Audrey, and we follow Kat. Kat is her best friend, and we also follow him. Him is our stalker, and I was trying to figure out who the stalker could be the entire time, and I wasn't expecting it. I really wasn't. Some people might. I'm not good at the guessing game most of the time. Sometimes I can figure it out, but not all the time, and this was not one of those times that I did not figure it out. But yeah, so we have Audrey, who is our Instagram influencer, but you don't really know what type of influencer she is. Fashion, or if she's just like a lifestyle blogger, I'm not sure. She lives her life through Instagram, basically, and it's funny because her life isn't as it seems. Like what she puts out there, it's completely different from what her life really is. You would think that she's like this very, very outgoing party type, very organized, very she's got her shit together kind of thing. But really in real life, it's not how it is. She is an outgoing person. She is sort of the life of the party, but she's also very lonesome. But she does end up having a stalker, and the ways he goes about stalking her is very, very, very creepy. And then we have Kat, her best friend, who you get a totally different look at Audrey from Kat's perspective, and it made me wonder the entire time, how are these two friends? Because I felt like Kat really didn't like Audrey. Kat was always trying to make herself fit in better with Audrey, but I was a little wishy-washy about Kat. I was kind of keeping an extra eye on her. And then of course, like I said, we follow him, and from his little, he doesn't have a lot of parts in the book, but when we do get his storytelling time, I was really intrigued with what he was doing, and like just, oh my goodness. But yeah, I had a real good time listening to this. I read along with it sometimes. I enjoyed the narration. Like I said, it was everyone had a voice, so we had 3 narrators. It was really good, very interesting and educational. All right, next up we have The Last Houseguest by Megan Miranda. I gave this 2 stars. If it wasn't for the fact that I really, really wanted to see how this ended, once again, she pulls me in, and I really want to know what happened. But the majority of the book is so boring, or the facts are just jumbled all together and I don't know what's happening. But anyway, yeah, I would have DNF'd it if it wasn't for the fact that I really wanted to figure out what was going on. There was a time I remember, because I did listen to this on Scribd, and I remember doing some things around the house, and all of a sudden I just stopped and I was like, wait, what? So I had one little moment, and then it ended up like being nothing. So I was like, okay. So yeah, so we follow Avery. Avery takes us back a year before, so we're in Avery 2018. So we go back to summer 2017 was the last time she saw her friend Sadie, I believe is her name. Yeah, Sadie Lohman. Her and her family, Sadie and her family, they own a summer home in this area. Avery actually lives there. She's actually living on the Lohman property because she takes care of their business while they're not there for the summer months, and they have like rental properties or whatever. But anyway, she's taking us back to the previous year before, at this party where that was the last time she either saw or talked to Sadie, and Sadie turned up dead. So we have a timeline here, which I love, but for some reason in this book it did not work for me. Once again, there was so much information going on. I felt like there was too many hands in the fire at one point, and I was trying to collect all the information, and it was just a lot for it to be such a slow book. When we get to the end, it's like all this information at one time. I just felt like it was too much, and like I didn't see it coming. It still wasn't that big of a deal. I was just like, oh, okay. Next we have Like Never and Always by Anne Aguirre. Not sure how to say that last name, so I apologize. But I enjoyed this very, very much. I gave this, what did I give? I gave this 5 stars. This is a YA mystery. So we have 4 friends, 2 guys, 2 girls. They're couples. And the 2 girls live in Morgan, or like best friends. And they're dating brothers. So they're coming home from a party, I believe. They get in long story short, this is right in the beginning, they get in a really bad accident. So when Liv wakes up in the hospital and everyone's calling her Morgan, she doesn't understand what's going on. It's, you know, she does have like her face is wrapped or whatever, so she's thinking that maybe they must have her and Morgan confused, you know, because their faces are wrapped. You know, that's what she's thinking the entire time. But then when her face is unwrapped, you know, they still addressing her as if she's Morgan, but she's like Liv on the inside. So she has to pretty much live out Morgan's life. And as she's trying to cope with this and figure out what to do about this, what's going on, why is this happening, what does this mean. She finds that Morgan has some very, very dark secrets. There was a good like spiritual aspect to this story, and I think that's what intrigued me. Because we get like little snippets of like maybe Morgan trying to kind of communicate with her, with Liv, and Liv feels like she has to correct whatever was going on in Morgan's life. Like there was some bad stuff happening but Morgan was trying to make it good. She was on a path to turn something around, and with the accident happened, and now Liv is on that path trying to make it right, trying to do what she thought Morgan would want her to do. So we have Liv in Morgan's body, but Morgan is nowhere around. So it was just crazy, and I enjoyed every minute of it. I loved the whole spiritual aspect of it, the whole mystery behind everything of what was going on in Morgan's life. It was fun. I really enjoyed it. I highly recommend it. I did listen to this on audio as well, and it was a very good narration. I think I'm gonna save this one. I'm gonna save that one for last because that was my favorite read of the month. So let's talk about Her Every Fear by Peter Swanson. I gave this 4 stars. It was really good, but it wasn't like a top-notch thriller or a mystery thriller, but it was fun. I enjoyed it. I did listen to this on audio. The narration was great. So we had Kate Pretty. She is English, and her cousin, or her American cousin, swap apartments. So she goes to live in Boston while he goes to London to live in her flat. And when she gets there, his next door neighbor ends up going missing and then turns up dead. So of course we're wondering, is this why Corbin left? Corbin's her cousin. Did he really have a job opportunity that he needed to go to London for? But anyway, Kate is trying to escape from a traumatic past that she has had with her ex-boyfriend. So this came at a really good opportunity for her. We learn some things as we read the book about Corbin. We follow Kate, we follow Corbin, and I believe we might follow the creepy neighbor that lives across the way from their apartment, or from Aubrey or / Corbin's apartment. It can get confusing. So we get a little bit of a timeline with Corbin and as well as Kate talking about their past and how they have come to where they are in the present time. Corbin's past is very interesting, and you start to understand him a little bit more as the book goes on. I felt for Corbin. Like, I didn't feel like he was the bad person in this. He did do some things, but he was trying to not necessarily make amends, but trying to stop it from continuing to happen. So there's a lot kind of going on, but it's not confusing, and there's a lot of characters that you're wondering, why are they there? Like for instance, the creepy neighbor across the street. Why was he kind of not necessarily stalking, but he was sort of a creeper, because his window and Corbin's neighbor, the girl that got murdered, you could see their apartments clearly from across the way. So he was sort of like spying on her, and he got a little bit obsessed with her a little bit. And then we have the supposedly ex-boyfriend of the murdered girl. I forget her name. He's kind of coming around, and he's a little weird. So you don't know who's at fault here. If any one of those people is the reason the neighbor got murdered. Kate starts to follow some little clues as to what's going on and trying to figure out Corbin, because she doesn't really know him very, very well. Obviously she's English, he's American, but they are cousins, but they never really met at all. So she doesn't know him, so she's trying to follow his little crumbs everywhere to see what's going on with him. And then we're getting Corbin's story. So it was really good. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, it wasn't like the best mystery thriller ever, but I really had a good time with it. And I did sneak in another male romance before the end of the month. I reread IRL by Lucy Lennox and Molly Maddox. I think I talked about this book in one of my male romance recommendations, and it kind of got, when I was doing those videos, it kind of got me rethinking about these books, and like, I actually want to reread them, or if I've read them, I want to now listen to the audio kind of thing. And I'm not a rereader, so I started with IRL because it was more along the lines of my most recent book that had more books in the series that I have read. And I remember really enjoying it. I gave it 5 stars again. I really enjoyed the trope to it. So it's like an enemies to lover sort of trope, but it's also a story of they don't know, or one guy doesn't know who the other is, but this other guy knows who he is, kind of thing. And they communicate through text. They kind of do like a sexting thing. So yeah, so this is called the After Oscar series. So all these guys at some point have dated Oscar. In book 1, you don't get to know Oscar at all. So yeah, this is Wes and Connor's story. So Wes is a very successful businessman. He's in the business of, I believe he like buys medical equipment and distributes it out into the medical world for them to use. I'm not real, they don't really elaborate on that, but that's what I'm getting from the story. Connor's mom invented this printer with his help. Connor is sort of like on the geeky side. He owns like a gaming store. He goes to like these, conventions, gaming conventions. He's successful in his own way. He's very, very smart. Connor has to end up going to Wes's company to present the product to him and come up with a deal and all this stuff. Connor's really nervous about it because his mom, she doesn't like Wes, and she refers to him as that asshole. And so Connor is super nervous about doing business with this asshole without her there. But anyway, to kind of loosen things up the night before, he goes to the hotel bar that he's staying at. And him and the bartender kind of flirt, and the bartender gives him his number. Well, when Connor gets back up to his room, he's feeling a little frisky. He's got a little drink in him, so he decides he's going to send a very naughty picture to this bartender and basically ask him to come to his room and all this stuff. Well, somehow numbers get crossed. You find out where the numbers get crossed later on in the book, but he ends up texting a picture of himself to Wes. And so the story kind of takes off from there, but Wes doesn't know who it is. Of course, Connor thinks he's texting the bartender, but then he realizes by the end of the night that it's not the bartender. So he doesn't know, he just calls him his sexy anonymous friend or whatever. But they still they still keep chit-chatting and sexting or whatever. And Wes realizes it the first time he sees Connor. I'm not going to tell you how he realizes it. I'll let you figure that out. This is all in the very beginning, so it's no spoiler. But that's how the story goes from there. So, Wes not only is enjoying his time texting with Connor, but he's also enjoying Connor in person, in real life, so IRL. So yeah, so their relationship grows while Connor is there, and he's only there for a couple of days. But Wes really likes him, and Connor really does like Wes, but he's trying his best not to. It was just so much fun and refreshing to read at the end of the month after all these thrillers, and it just kind of got me set for my June reading. So I just kept on going with the rest of the series, so you'll hear more about that in my June wrap up. Okay, and last but definitely not least, y'all, this is my favorite book of the month, at least. I don't know, I loved Broken Girls, and I heard a lot of people say that they rather Broken Girls over this book, but I don't know. I love them both almost on the same level, but they were sort of different. They both have a paranormal aspect to them, But I find this book plays on that a lot more than the Broken Girls did. I just had a lot of fun reading this book, as well as Broken Girls. Broken Girls creeped me out. This creeped me out. I remember I had to stop reading one night because I was in the bedroom and Michael was outside in his shop, so no one was in the house but me and Bella. And as I'm reading this book, I'm like hearing little creaks and cracks, you know how your house settles or whatever. And I'm like looking around my room like, okay, I have to go to the front of the house because I can't sit back here in this bedroom all by myself and read this book. That's how creepy it was. So we follow Viv in 1982. Yes, Viv's in 1982, and we also follow her niece Carly in present time, or 2018, I believe is when we're, or 2017. Okay, get your facts straight, Amy. So yeah, so timeline's going on here. Absolutely loved it. I loved how you're reading Viv's story and you flip over to Carly's story, and I loved how you were starting to put two and two together between their two stories. I didn't feel like their stories were the same at all, because I heard someone say that their stories were just pretty much duplicates and they felt like they were reading the same thing just like twice. But I didn't feel that. I felt like we were putting pieces together between Viv's story and Carly's story. So Viv leaves home in 1982 and she's starting to make her way to New York. So she does a little bit of hitchhiking, and in 1982 that was, you know, a scary thing, because in the 1980s was when a lot of, if you're a true crime podcast listener like I am, the 80s were a murderous time. So just reading her hitchhiking in 1982, I was scared to death for her. But she doesn't get hurt. But she does find herself not necessarily in New York City, but in Fell, New York. And she stumbles upon the Sundown Motel. And she goes to get a room. This is all happening in the very beginning. She goes to get a room for the night. And I don't remember exactly how it happened, but she ends up working there from that night on. And all kinds of stuff starts to happen. Little things like she smells smoke at, you know, different times of the night every now and then. She sees things, she hears things. It's just really, really creepy. And then we hop over to Carly's side of the story, where her mother passes away and she just finds out about her Aunt Viv, who had went missing in 1982. The body was never found, but, you know, they pretty much proclaimed her dead. So she decides for herself that she's going to see if she can trace the steps of her Aunt Viv and either find her body and put her at rest, or possibly find her Aunt Viv if she's still alive. So Carly ends up getting a job at the Sundown Motel as well. I'm not sure how it happened. I don't know if she does it purposely. I think she might do it purposely just to put herself in her Aunt Viv's place, to see exactly, you know, try to maybe follow in her footsteps at, you know, what happened to her that night she went missing in 1982. So a string of events start to take place, and they do sort of follow each other. Like the same things start to happen to Carly. She smells the smoke, she hears things, she sees the same things. But in 2017, there are a few little different aspects to the story, but yet there are a few of the same things that are sort of happening. So I can see where people were saying how the book sort of repeats itself, but I didn't find that it repeated itself. It was just putting it in a different aspect from 1982 to 2017, and the pieces were just coming together. The puzzle was just forming right in front of you. And I mean, I pretty much kind of figured it out a little bit, maybe just a little part of it, but not all of it. But it was still so much fun to read, so creepy. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I loved it just as much as I loved Broken Girls. just on maybe possibly different levels. Like I said, I feel like this story had a lot of more paranormal aspect to it than the Broken Girls did. There was a lot more ghostly things happening in this story, and it's a haunted motel basically, and I was all about it. I loved it. 5 stars. I highly recommend it if you were, you know, second guessing because of you were hearing it's not as good as Broken Girls. I think you should give it a go because I think it's on a whole different level from Broken Girls. It's still creepy, mysterious, and has paranormal to it, but it's different. They're different stories, and I love both of them. So that was my May reads. Like I said, I didn't read as much as I did like in April, but April was sort of a crazy month of lots of listening to books while I was trying to get work done. I had a really good time with these books, except for the DNF ones, or possibly maybe getting back to that other book. I don't know. We'll see. Let's see how I feel. Thank y'all so much for watching and sticking around with me, listening to me ramble about all these books I read in May. Let me know down below if you read any of these, if you liked them, or what you've been reading, what you're currently reading. Any recommendations for me, I would love. As always, I'll have these books listed down below in the description box, along with anything else you're looking for. Social medias, join Book of the Month. Whatever you're looking for is going to be down there in the description box below. Hope you're all doing well. Hugs from me all around, and I will see y'all in my next video. Bye, y'all.